Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06 here on O'Connor and Company. Coming up in 60 minutes, we hand it off to Chris Plant. A good reminder that we have a 4-hour program starting at 5 a.m. You should download the podcast if you missed any of it, because that 5 o'clock hour focused quite a bit on underwear. Right? And that's something you want to podcast. Let's hear Larry and Julie talk about underwear.
Let's hear Larry mostly talk about underwear.
Not necessarily our underwear, just underwear in general. Yes, but it was a topic of conversation. Again,
there's a poll out.
I am merely trying to promote our digital platforms and the podcast available everywhere that you podcast O'Connor and Company. Coming up in 30 minutes, Sean Kennedy, Virginia's for Safe Communities. I'm Larry O'Connor. She's Julie Gunlock. And joining us right now for a very, very high-profile week on Capitol Hill, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. Representative Biggs, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Larry and Julie. Good to be with you.
So we're looking at potentially a blockbuster week of hearings focusing on Hunter Biden, Anthony Fauci, and the beginning, hopefully, of the impeachment process of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Take your pick, or all three of them, Congressman Biggs. What are you hoping to achieve here, and what will Republicans not just talk about, what will Republicans actually do with regard to those three gentlemen?
Okay, so let's take Hunter Biden first. With Hunter Biden, I said on both these committees, Judiciary Oversight, going to do the initial resolutions of the contempt hearing of Hunter Biden. I think we're gonna find him in contempt. It should probably be unanimous in both those committees. It'll then come to the floor by the end of the week, and that is to hold him in contempt and refer him to Department of Justice for prosecution.
Cool. Can I a quick follow up on that? The contempt, of course, is because he refused a subpoena of your committee. We now know that, first of all, his father, President Joe Biden, knew something about what Hunter Biden was going to do that day with regard to ignoring the committee, the subpoena. He went down to Capitol Hill and gave a defiant press conference, lambasting Republicans, saying that he won't testify, and saying that proudly bragging that he will ignore the subpoena. And then it appears as though he then returned to the White House and went into the White House residence. So I guess my question is, what did the president know about this, and when did he know it?
Well, we don't really know too much about it, except for he seems to have known about it because his staff and press people have said he knew about it.
Yeah.
And so that, did he aid and abet? Was he helping? Was he assisting? Was he encouraging him not to come to answer the subpoena? Was he obstructing justice? Those types of things. Those are questions that we're still trying to get answers to. I mean, the bottom line is he gave him succor by allowing him to come back to the White House and probably took him to the White House canteen for a little hot cocoa to feel better.
Or they continued to crawl around the floor to look for that little bag of white powder. Congressman Big, let's move on to Anthony Fauci and Alejandro Mayorkas.
Okay, so Fauci, he's got 2 days of hearings scheduled, is my understanding. More depositions, I should say depositions, not hearings, where he's going to be really put through some paces because we think he's lied. We think he's been, actually, in my opinion, he has basically done more to harm a nation than many in the history of this world. And he was lying, and he's been inconsistent. And there's going to be a pretty rough hearing, is my understanding. The deposition is going to be pretty all-encompassing with regard to his role in trying to bring control to himself and aggrandizement and the lies that go with it. So there's a lot there with Anthony Fauci.
And then Mayorkas.
With Mayorkas, he'll be there perhaps, but it is in the Homeland Security Committee. I believe they're going to vote to do an impeachment referral to the whole House. I've looked at the evidence, obviously, on Mayorkas for a long time. And, just coming back from the border, I was at the border a couple of times over the break. It is worse than ever, and it is deliberate. This cannot be anything short of willful attempt to destroy our sovereignty by destroying our border. So I think that he's going to be there'll be an impeachment referral that comes out of Homeland Security this week as well.
I want to ask you about another case that made news this week. One of the co-defendants in the Georgia election interference case alleged in a court filing on Monday that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, who she hired, had engaged in a romantic relationship. You've introduced legislation to defund the Fulton County DA office. Can you comment on that new lawsuit, that new filing?
Yeah, it's pretty consistent. It's obvious. I mean, Ms. Willis herself has made no real secret that this is a political witch hunt that she's engaged in. But I mean, when you have these kind of potential, let's say, conflict of interest improprieties that are going on there, being able to have this type of relationship means you might have some kind of, extra hold to basically defy a kind of objective approach that you might otherwise have. It's really a problem for a prosecutorial agency. So I think it's just one more arrow in the quiver against Fani Willis.
We're speaking with Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona. Congressman Biggs, you were part of the challenge of Speaker Kevin McCarthy at the beginning of this congressional session. And, of course, we know how his speakership ended up. We now have Speaker Mike Johnson, and he has announced that he appears to have reached some agreement with funding the government and moving forward with a budget. What is your opinion on the details of this agreement that you know of?
Well, we've looked at it, and actually it's not very good. I mean, most Republicans voted against that debt ceiling deal that Kevin McCarthy put together, and this funding package going forward is based on that deal, which took away, as everybody should remember, it actually eliminated the debt ceiling. So,
and that led to, and his reliance on Democrat votes to get that done led to his ouster as Speaker. Do you anticipate, if that goes the same way with Mike Johnson, that his speakership is in jeopardy?
I don't know if I would say it's teetering. I know a lot of people were chattering over the weekend as soon as that was announced. They were incredibly upset by it because not only do you have the same levels of the FRA, what you have is actually with the side deals and everything else that they have, you actually go well above that. And then they have the audacity to say that they're actually cutting spending. Well, that's a pretty bizarre notion when you consider that they're also going to lay somewhere in the next few weeks a $110 billion supplemental on. So they're going to claim that they have a $30 billion net savings, which isn't accurate, by the way. And then they're going to roll in a $110 billion supplemental spending package that is not funded anywhere. So you have, even if you give them the best case scenario for them, you have a net $80 billion addition to your structural deficit, and which goes to your national debt bottom line. So people are really not happy about it. There's also, there was a lot of bravado at the border last week where they were saying, "Hey, look, we're going to use our leverage with the funding package to get something done on the border. We want to make sure something's done on the border." That's not included in this package either. So.
If Speaker Johnson pulled you aside in the cloakroom today and said, "Hey, Andy, what do you think I should do?" What advice would you give him in terms of a looming shutdown, potentially the political fallout of that? What do you think Speaker Johnson should do?
Well, I actually have legislation that I'm just waiting to introduce that would actually continue to fund. Of course, if there's a shutdown, all the mandatory programs continue, but you would also fund, in my bill, ICE, CBP, the military, make sure that we're protected, TSA, the air traffic controllers. But everything else can shut down, in my opinion. And it has to shut down until you get enforcement of the border. Last month's numbers, if you include gotaways, is well in excess of 400, pushing 450,000 people. You can't do that for another 12 months because that would put you about 5.4 million additional illegal aliens into the country. And so you have got to do something to lever this administration to actually enforce the border laws that are already in place.
All right. It's a busy week. We appreciate you previewing it with us, Congressman Biggs, and we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all.
It's 8:15.